Cambridge University Library is going to talk to us about the Cambridge University Library map collection, a treasure trove.
Hello everybody, and thank you for asking me to speak. It's been a fascinating afternoon so far. So Cambridge University Library, an imposing building. Some people love it, some people don't like it so much, but what we can't deny is that it's got a wonderful collections inside it of international importance in many cases. So the library is over 600 years old, but the current building was opened in 1934 and designed by Sir Giles Gilbert Scott. If you know the Tate Modern Gallery on the Thames in London, with its central tower, it bears a striking resemblance to the University Library. But he also designed the iconic red telephone box. And this is one of the corridors in the library with the map room through the door at the end of the corridor there. The library is one of 6 legal deposit libraries, and we're all entitled to a copy of everything published in Great Britain and Ireland. So you can see how quickly the collections can grow. It has over 8 million books, journals, other items, and has one of the largest collections on open shelves in Europe. And this is one of the open stack areas. And uniquely for a legal deposit library, much of the collections, though not maps and atlases, I hasten to add, may be borrowed by university members, but the library itself can be used by anyone. You do have to apply, show identification, etc. And for some categories of users, there may be a fee, but it is open to everybody. I think it's also important to note that the University Library, which is the yellow blob here, is not the only library in Cambridge by any means. This is a map from the University of Cambridge Libraries Directory, which actually lists well over 120 libraries, to my surprise. And amongst those, many of the libraries will have maps and atlases and travel books in them, especially the 31 college libraries. But also the departmental and faculty libraries, many of which will have antiquarian book collections. And in particular, the departments of Geography and Earth Sciences have substantial map collections, and also the Scott Polar Research Institute. But the University Library map department has the biggest collection of maps in the university, and this is the map department's reading room, which we call the map room. Has lovely big tables for spreading maps out on, and is a lovely light, airy room, though I say so myself. So the map collections, maps, atlases, views, gazetteers, books on cartography, well over 1.5 million maps. I mean, we haven't counted them. That's the figure we have come up with. It's obviously smaller than the British Library collections, but on a par with the other legal deposit libraries. Has 50,000 atlases and books on cartography. It's important to mention that the collections cover all parts of the world. They date from the 15th century to the present, and we're always adding new material. A lot of material is acquired by legal deposits for obvious reasons, but also purchase and donation, especially from the Ministry of Defence Map Library, a particularly valuable source for many libraries in the UK of recent or modern mapping of all sorts. But in the University Library, there are also maps in other parts of the library, in the rare books, the manuscripts collection, the Asia and Near and Middle East collections. And there's a sort of fuzzy division between printed and manuscript maps. In the map room, we do have manuscript maps, but there's also the wonderful Scott collection of maps, for example, in the manuscripts department. And there's a sort of fuzzy division between Latin and non-Latin script maps. In theory, we have the Latin script maps, and the non-Latin scripts are in the appropriate language department. But we do have a lot of Chinese, Japanese, etc. maps as well, as do the relevant language departments. I'm going to give a flavour of our collections by focusing on some of the events we've held in the map room. We've quite often held these in association with our colleagues from the Royal Commonwealth Society Library, whose own collection includes printed materials, archival material and photographs on the Commonwealth and Britain's former colonial territories. And there's an obvious synergy between our collections. You'll see here, I think this was the event on the history of Mumbai and Hong Kong. The RCS supplied photographs and we supplied the maps to put those in context and to show how places have changed through time. Of particular significance is one of the events we held in 2013 for one of the Cambridge festivals, where we displayed 3 maps of parts of Burma drawn in about 1860 by Burmese artists on cloth, presented to the University Library in 1910. Goss had worked in Burma and later taught Burmese language at Cambridge University. The display of the maps at the event caused quite a lot of interest amongst researchers and members of the public, which directly led to them being digitized in our digitization studio, where they used their brand new XYZ table. In this, the camera is fixed above and the maps lay on the table below, which moves. The map on the table at the moment is an AO map, so you can see the size of the table. The smallest of the Burmese maps was pictured in 126 images, the largest in 420, and was quite a technical feat for the department to do. And following the digitization, the maps were also sent for conservation, all again as a direct result of the interests, especially the academic interest shown in them at that event in 2013. The maps are all now on the Cambridge Digital Library. I've seen the first few slides for the next presentation, and I think these maps feature in that too. So I won't say very much about them, just to say that do have a look at them on the Digital Library. They do blow up into wonderful detail, and needless to say, they are much easier to see in the Digital Library than they ever were in the map department, where the largest map, this is the largest map, which is 4 by 2.6 meters, overflows the edges of one of our benches. The 2 smaller ones can fit together on one of the benches. And this, this map pictured here is quite possibly our largest map. As I say, the display of the maps led to a lot of research about the maps themselves, but also about how the maps were acquired, and relationships between Goss and other people working in Burma and elsewhere at the time. And this is summed up nicely in this blog post, which again is well worth having a look at if you're interested. And it also resulted in a visiting scholar coming from Burma to study these maps and others in London. So quite an important event from our point of view. And also led to 2 new acquisitions. These were both bought at auction. They're on manuscript on paper rather than on cloth with the other 3, and they're not yet catalogued or digitized, but we do hope to do both in the near future. Before they were offered at auction, the vendor did get in touch with me. He was a retired antiques dealer and had found them in his shed, so and couldn't remember where he got them from, which is rather a shame. But they are important maps in their own right. So it's worth spending a little, just a few moments talking about the map department catalogues. So since 2000, all new acquisitions have only been catalogued in our online catalogue called iDiscover. But before 2000, any items catalogued before 2000 are mostly findable only via our card catalogue. And there's also an archives catalogue. So to find out what maps we have, you do need to look in all 3 places. To search, I discover for maps. Most people looking for maps are not looking for a known item. They are looking for maps of a place at a particular date. So it's best to go to the advanced search option and use the subject search over here, and then type the name of the place you're interested in and the word maps. And for India, in this case, it brought up 460 results. You can then sort by date. But the card catalogue, of course, only available in the map department itself, and it's arranged in one alphabetical sequence by the place covered on the map. It's here open at China, and you can see there are various subdivisions behind the general maps, geology and roads, etc. There have over the years been various projects to convert the card catalogue to online records, and the most recent took place between 2017 and 19, where we concentrated on some of the maps of Asia, starting with Burma, because of the interest shown in the Burmese cloth maps. And I will stress that we do have maps of the places which aren't coloured in red, and we do have online records for some of them, but in no cases will it be all of the maps we have, whereas the countries coloured in red, it should be all of the maps we have of that country and its parts. I have to admit that some of the cards for Japanese maps are rather rudimentary and do need enhancing at some point when we have some language expertise. But at the end of this, we had a pop-up exhibition, and just to give you a flavour of some of the items we displayed, we did have quite a lot of Japanese maps on display because they're all attractive and unusual. But we do have lots of military type mapping. This is a 1944 map showing the oil installations, warehouses, shipyards and industrial areas by the United States Office of Strategic Services. We of course have modern maps, or recent and more modern maps of towns, so we can show how a town has changed through time. We have a substantial collection of modern tourist maps of towns and countries as well. And if you are getting rid of such items, you may think they're ephemeral, but we'd be very happy to accept donations. They're not catalogued for the catalogue, they're listed in a database and then filed away by place. Regional maps, lovely 1904 bird's eye view of the Far East, and maps of imperial possessions. More unusual things, marine products from 1936, and on the back of that is a wonderful poster of fish and a more general map of the area. So the collection is not all serious type mapping. And then a more thematic map, malaria, a map of Burma and Assam from 1940, and a railway map of India, Burma and Ceylon from 1909. Just a few examples of some of the things we had on display. Another fine view of the map room with our mobile map trays in the background. So we also have, the collection also includes topographic views and also a very large collection of postcards, which a few of which you can see illustrated here. These again, they're not catalogues listed or dated, it would be too big a job, but they are arranged by place in filing cabinets. And some of them have been used, so people quite often get carried away reading the text on the back. Just to show that we do have a substantial collection of older maps of all parts of the world, of course, but including parts of Asia. A lovely elephant down there, this is from 1680. And more sort of cutesy maps, 1930 map of tea trade in Ceylon. This is a very, very tiny thing, but it's rather beautiful, I think. Map of China by John Speed, very famous British cartographer. And you can always fit a good map into any exhibition. This was brought out for an exhibition to celebrate the 50th anniversary of the moon landings. So you've never put a good map down. All the maps I've talked about so far have been sort of one-off publications. We also have substantial set of series maps, so maps covering a large area and lots of different sheets, and a lot of Survey of India sheets. This for the area surrounding Mandalay at 1 inch per mile, 1913. And many of these series maps will have several editions, so you can trace how the landscape has changed and even how the mapping has changed. There's a recent project, a current project in the university where the Survey of India maps are being used to track archaeological sites, for example. You will notice that this isn't a map of Asia. A map which we nearly always have out on display in the map room is the Soviet General Staff map of Cambridge, published in 1989. One of many secret maps of towns or of all parts of the world which the Soviet military made before, during and after the Cold War. The buildings are color-coded for industrial plants, administrative premises, and items of military significance. The Soviet military mapped around 2,000 cities worldwide in 130 countries. And although we don't have all of them, we do have a significant number, including the sheet for Beijing, for example. The Beijing sheet is on 2 sheets. I'm just showing the eastern sheet here and a detail. And they typically have an index to the streets and a list of significant buildings or objects, they're called, and a text which you can see down the bottom of the sheet, which which talks about the physical and cultural characteristics of the town and the surrounding country. And show a very interesting glimpse at what the Soviet military thought was important in the various towns. The Soviet military estimated over 1 million sheets, covering most of the world at various scales. And they have a standardized symbology. So a Soviet soldier, once trained, could pick up a map of anywhere in the world and understand what it was trying to say. Whereas if they had to rely on local maps, they would have to learn what the symbology meant in each different situation. And probably the most comprehensive mapping project the world has ever seen. And the maps were classified as secret or as official use only became available outside the Soviet Union in the early 1990s, after the breakup of the Soviet Union. For many parts of the world, they are actually the best available modern mapping. On the right, you'll see how the sheet numbering breaks down. It's based on the International Map of the World numbering. N35 will be 1 sheet at the 1 to million scale. That is then split into 4 sheets at the 1 to 500 scale, into 36 sheets at the 1 to 200,000 scale, and then down into the smaller scales as well. This is our index for the 1 to 200,000 scale holdings at CUL. Each of the very small squares is 1 map at that scale. I'll show you an illustration in a minute. So there is, we do have substantial coverage. The 1 to 1 million sheets cover the whole world. The 1 to 500,000 sheets also cover the whole world, and we have complete sets of both of those. The 200,000 scale sheets, we bought different countries when they first became available. You could only buy a whole country at a time. The 1 to 200,000 sheets usually have text on the back, a descriptive text, again talking about the geology, the economy, the industry of the area. We bought the whole of China amongst many other countries. The we also bought 100,000 sheets for some countries in the world, usually countries where there was less other available mapping. So China, thank you. So China was an obvious candidate for that. And we have half a dozen sheets of China at 1 to 50,000, which we bought as scans. But it's quite remarkable that all this mapping is taking place. To find out more about the Soviet military mapping, then the Red Atlas is a book by John Davies and Alex Kent is a wonderful read for that, but also the Red Atlas website has lots of background information. And the Cambridge University Library Map Department information sheet pictured here also has a list of places where you can buy and in many cases just view this mapping and find out, it's got plenty of further reading on it. One perhaps ought to consider why the Soviets were making this map, these maps. The sometimes glib answer is for were they going to invade. I think in many cases we think they were really for administration purposes sometime in the future, if they were ever to take control of the various countries. We actively collect national atlases, a few pictured here. The middle one, the National Atlas of Korea for Children, we were actually sent. I don't think we probably would have bought it, it was given to us. But we do have lots of children's atlases from British publishers, all part of the legal deposit collection. And books on cartography, we obviously try to buy a comprehensive set of these. The one on the left, the Comprehensive Atlas of the Dutch United East India Company, is a wonderful 7-volume publication full of manuscript, reproductions of manuscript maps and charts on the Dutch East India Company activities. Just to say that the library is offering limited services at the moment. Most staff are working from home with limited access to the collections, but we are trying to answer queries as and when, as we can. Comments on using the map room. And if you have any questions, please get in contact with us or consult our web pages and LibGuide and the information sheets. Thank you very much.
And thank you very much indeed. Sarah, have we any questions, please?
We do. We have a question from Charles, who asks how many postcards you have.
Lots. many thousands.
Thank you. There are no more questions at the moment in the Q&A chat. So let's wait a few seconds to see if our attendees are writing something down.
That's fine by me.
And I can't resist this opportunity. I mean, seeing the Soviet military maps, I just found absolutely fascinating. So were you saying that they actually have the best world coverage? I mean, it really is an extraordinary thing.
I think as for a single organization, they've mapped more than the world as more scales than anybody else. Absolutely. And all to a consistent standard and specification. It is a remarkable achievement, and one which we know relatively little about. We've teased bits of information out, but there's still a lot to be discovered.
Well, next time I'm in Cambridge, I'll really make a beeline for that. It's wonderful. Thank you.
Anne, we have some questions coming through. So first of all, Samira asks if you could go back with your presentation to the slide where you have the links so people have the time to note them down.
Shall I put them into the chat? Would that be easier, Chris?
Or you can, yes, or you can post the links in the chat. That would
Probably easier than going backwards,
Yeah,
yes.
Thank you. Then Yasmin is asking, what is the oldest Western map or atlas in your collection?
We usually say it's a 1475 map of Istanbul. We don't really know.
Thank you. And Diana is asking if you have a manuscript maps from China, Japan, and Korea.
I don't think so. We're currently digitizing all of our manuscript maps, some of which are on the Cambridge Digital Library already. They are nearly all of Cambridge. There's a few of Australia. I don't think we have any manuscript maps of those areas.
Thank you. Natasha is asking, are those Chinese maps of the Soviet military collection, which you mentioned, if they are scanned or available online and available online?
Specifically the Chinese ones?
Yes.
So the 200,000 scale ones you can get online at the load.de site, and the less detailed ones as well. The 100,000 I haven't seen online, and certainly not the 50,000. But Eastview Cartographic in the States will sell you scans of them, as will other suppliers. If you go to my information sheets, it gives lots of details there.
Thank you. We have a question about the maps from intelligence services. Do you have any maps from intelligence services like Mossad or RAW or CIA or any others?
Yes and no. The Ministry of Defence gives us lots of maps, but they only give us maps which have security clearance. So I think most of the maps we have are, moderately freely available, and we can certainly show them to anybody who comes into the library. The CIA, for example, we have lots of maps published by the CIA, which are sort of small A4 country-based maps, but they're not really, they're just for information rather than for spying or any military purposes.
Thank you. Tim is asking, how many map catalogers do you have, and how much time is dedicated to converting your old card catalogs to being online?
So for the 2-year project, most recent project, we had one cataloger who was doing that. There are 5 of us in the map department, though one person is just part-time. And 2 of those members of staff catalogue most of the time when they're not doing other things like answering reader inquiries and staffing the map room. So it's not a huge staff, but it's a reasonable staff. There's always more to do. Okay.
Thank you. Virginia is asking if CUL has any other Southeast Asia maps besides Burma.
Manuscript maps or so yes, I mean for the printed mapping, the whole world is covered in various amounts of detail, but certain Burma and surrounding countries were catalogued in the last retrospective conversion project. So if you have a look in iDiscover, you'll have a feeling for what we have. The countries outside those that were coloured red on the map, we have maps, but it would be a case of looking at the card catalogue to find them. you can always email me and I can give you an idea of how much we have of a particular place.
Thank you, Anne. There are still several questions in the Q&A chat, so if you have time, please answer typing there.
Yeah.
And thank you, everyone, for their questions.
Yes, thank you very much for
Thank
all
you.
the questions. And once again, thank you very much indeed for your presentation.